Thanks for staying with us. This is Daybreak and your company is appreciated. In my company, Dr. Koki Mule-Grignon, Elections, Governance and Democracy commentator, Professor Peter Kagwanja with the CEO of the Africa Policy Institute, Elizabeth Adundo, also joins us this morning. She was part of the Observer team in Tanzania. We're still setting up our connection with Ruben Kigame, who will be joining us shortly from Eldoret City in the county of Uasin Gishu. Yes, Elizabeth. Before Prof finished on, we have been talking about the question of authoritarianism in the region and the danger this poses to institutions, ideally. How then should the perspectives be for the people in Jumuiya to look at elections and generally how they are governed? Uganda next year, Kenya the other year in 2027, Somalia now the last born kid on the block will still has problems with the voting systems because of the insecurity question. Ideally, what's the feeling of the people's voices? Are they being heard? Are their votes counted as required?
You see, the thing about authoritarianism and dictatorship is that they have a way of working together very well and helping each other. And that's where the problem comes in, because the rest of the people normally keep quiet and shy away from getting into some of these processes, electoral processes and procedures. The lucky thing, I would say, is that we have a woke generation that understands what they want and what they need and what needs to be done. One of the things that I'm really, really happy for as a Kenyan is the constitution that we have. And just the fact that we can easily express ourselves and all these freedoms that we enjoy is not something that we need to take up lightly. And so my silver lining will be in the Gen Zs, the young people. Those are the people that we really need to empower to speak out. Because when we speak out against some of these ills, the dictators will shrink, hopefully. But as it were right now, they're gaining more momentum because they are together and they're the ones who are holding power. Look at the inauguration of Samia Suluhu. Who were there? The region was ably represented. And that was passing a message. The head of delegation for the East African Community Observer Mission was the former vice president of Uganda. And I think all of you heard her speech congratulating Samia and telling her that the time for the African woman has come. And she's a good example to the African woman. What does that tell you? There's a problem right there. So if we don't talk about some of these things, if we don't shout about some of these things, if we don't empower the young people against some of these things that are happening, especially in the East African region, we'll be having a problem. Look at what is happening in Djibouti, for instance. These guys have intentionally amended the constitution so that somebody else can continue with power. Forever. Yet that's a country of so many million people who are capable of. But the region is very quiet. There's never been any dissenting voice that, hey, whatever you're doing is not right. Even our big brother, the AU, very silent. In fact, they're the first people to send congratulatory messages to Djibouti. They did that to Djibouti. They did that to Samia Suluhu, despite the fact that the SADC region that was ably represented in the observer mission said otherwise. So our saving grace could be, number one, in the young people that we have in the region. That should be our saving grace. Secondly, we must speak about the ills that are happening. The more we speak about it, I believe they will shrink back. And Prof, many people have questioned Samia Suluhu Hassan's style of governance. And when she was the vice president, her position in Tanzania, that is owed more to tokenism than anything else. I mean, so politically insignificant. And merely people say it was accidental, unelected when she succeeded Magufuli, the first test on the ballot when she faced the people. And she had many prejudices to overcome. Her sex, her faith, and also her place of birth coming from the Zanzibar. Archipelago of Zanzibar. But has she matched up the expectations to the extent, if then the Europeans today were to look back at the
chancellorship of Angela Merkel. What lessons can the women leadership and the folk draw from today if we are to juxtapose those two examples?
We are living very interesting times when Africa is beginning to open up to women leadership. We looked at Namibia, you looked at what happened in Sierra Leone, even in Ethiopia, we had a president there. The record of women in those countries is very high. Like in Liberia, you know, Sheriff Johnson did a wonderful job in rehabilitating a country that was coming for more. The reason is, from a historical perspective, in ancient Egypt, after every rule of 4 men in succession, they would always insist on a woman to bring some soft power into the leadership. You
dilute the men's influence.
Because men in war and all that, you bring you bring in some softness to society. That's how people like Queen Hatshepsut and you know, others came to power to be queens in Egypt. And even those who have deep knowledge about African history, they get a lot of examples after Shaka Zulu and whatever, the successor. Women are always known to bring some sanity and some softness to society. And I think that is what we expected of the first Suruhu. So Suruhu 1 was that humanizing aspect to us. So we didn't care about her credentials. We didn't care where she came from. The only thing we know is that she's going to bring some motherhood and softness of the lady. But apparently now this Simbanjike is beginning to display worse traits than even men. And I think that's really a negative turn. Here we have our own. Look at what Mother Karua is doing in the region. This morning, she flies into Uganda to represent BCG. This morning. The other week before, you know, she was there again, and she has been in Tanzania. You've seen the experience. She was in Senegal. She was part of the team that was really struggling against President Macky Sall. Now, in this particular case, we need to generalize about this. Suruhu is a very specific case. And she comes from an area which also have a bad history, first of blaming foreigners for their own internal affairs. This is Zanzibar. You remember they blamed the 1964 revolution to one John Okello, who they said he's the one who led the revolution in Tanzania, I mean in Zanzibar. You know, so it's a history of externalizing responsibility, scapegoating literally, you know, that it is this. Suruhu knows that for Kenyans to go to Tanzania in their hordes and do what we saw happening, it must be a kind of a huge kind of operation, possibly guided by the Kenyan military and others, the way they did in Uganda in the 1980s. But because there is that old thing of blaming, there's a problem. I think what Suruhu does not know, you may not change the constitution, you may not do anything, she'll try to sit tight for the next 5 years. But the truth of the matter is that Tanzania itself is already burning. Take it from me. And I wish our sister country well. I have a lot of friends there at all levels. But it is good that we speak the truth to power. And speaking the truth to power is, we have Hassan Mwinyi, the son of the former president, as president in Zanzibar. And you have a dictator from Zanzibar in the mainland. It's not a good equation. Two Zanzibaris who has a bad history, but Mwinyi at least was softer after Nyerere, but he didn't help Tanzania to move. He never helped even an inch Tanzania to move towards a more accountable, a more progressive society. And therefore, the real thing is what they call in Tanzania, I've said this before, kelo za muungano.
Kero za muungano.
Kero za muungano. the pains of the union.
Okay.
Now, ask the mainland Tanzania, Mtanganyika, ask him or her where he or she is today in terms of thinking about the nationality. A normal Tanzanian who is from the mainland is now feeling the whole weight of an island dictating and tyrannizing their country. That's the pain.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Muli.
No, I'm just listening to this, and I'm thinking about all the red flags that you can see in the region. I know East Africa has grown beyond the 3 original members of the community. Now we are what, 8, 9?
Yeah.
8. And when you look at what we are teaching our new members, you know, the old 3 countries is not really good for our unity. And as I listen to Professor and to my sister, I am thinking about, I'm actually brought back to the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, in 1990, 91, 92, we were in the middle of this. We were the same age, around the same age as the current Gen Zs, as we are Gen Xs.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we had to improvise and to find the democratic spaces, at least to try to level the playing ground. I remember I was young then, but I was one of those people who were caught in the middle of everything at the time. And I remember one of the things that was happening at the time was that there was a unity of purpose there was no really civil society per se, because NGOs were banned. I remember I was working for Nairobi Law Monthly, then I went to the ICJ in 1992, just when we were putting together the National Election Monitoring Unit, which was the first monitoring observation body since the reintroduction of multipartyism in Kenya. And I recall that there was so much stifling of the media. The people who were actually pushing to open the democratic space was the media, religious organizations. Remember Reverend Joya and his sermons, and publishers like Gitobi Manyara, Nairobi Law Monthly. Bidan Bugwa was the editor of Beyond, which was a Christian magazine, Kinagatabaki and the Finance. These are the people who are pushing to open the democratic space. There was so much repression at the time. And the good Lord touched the heart of President Moi, and he opened the spaces. But why I'm remembering this is trying to see what is happening in our countries today. You have Kenyans abducted in Uganda. You have Kenyans being killed, literally, and being tortured in Tanzania, and in fact targeted, because the president says they must pay for having influenced her citizens to protest against her. And what are we doing? As a government, there's little or nothing that is happening.
Foreign affairs.
Foreign affairs and So I'm thinking that it is time we recall what we used to do when we didn't have a government we can count on. And that's why I'm appealing to every activist out there. And I know those hardened warriors amongst ourselves are still here. We are the mothers of these Gen Zs that we are counting on. So let's show them the direction, and let's try to rescue. And I must take this opportunity to thank the civil society in Kenya. Those have been, and also led by our sister and senior counsel, Mother Karua, and others, and also senior counsel, Kalonzo Musyoka, I must say, they are trying to actually restore sanity and tell the Gen Zs and everyone else in our region, not just in Kenya, that you will not get away with this. And I think that we have been shocked for too long. It is time now for us to wake up and say, we have a government we cannot rely on. So what do we do now? Let's take up whatever weapons that we used to have, our intellect, our activism, our advocacy, and let's go out there and have this growing constituency of people who are saying, never again. We can never go to where we were. And that's why I'm saying, I mean, in 2027, they can mess with whatever they do. We have a constitution, but in Kenya, with or without that constitution, you cannot mess with this country anymore.
And Elizabeth, looking at the events of 2024 and the days that you have spent in Tanzania,
2025?
2024-5, yeah. Majorly 2024. I mean the events around the finance bill, debt thereafter, and of course the first anniversary this year on June 25th. How is the view from inside Tanzania for what the youths have done in Kenya?
Well, there's a lot of muzzling of voices, and especially the media. When all this was happening, even during the elections, we were relying on news from Al Jazeera when power came, because again, we didn't have power. So every time power came, you'll just run so hard, so fast, to see what was happening in Tanzania from Al Jazeera, another continent altogether. So I think we just need to come out, as my seniors said, and speak about some of these ills and show the way. Because already there is a lot of muzzling of the voices, of the strong voices that we have, especially in Tanzania. If you try to speak, you're either abducted, you are killed, or they disappear with you without trace. Okay? The media, on the other hand, especially in Tanzania, is government-controlled. It's government-owned. So when power is there, the only thing you can see is these nice Tanzanian choirs that sing about peace. At some point in time, I was watching Al Jazeera, and they were reporting that 800 people have been reported killed. But when I went to ITV in Tanzania, the presenter there was just telling the people that, you know, we only have one country. We need to be very peaceful. Doesn't matter what's happening, provided we have leaders, and leaders come from God, that should be good enough. I don't think that is good enough. We need to open up more media outlets. We need to allow for the freedom of expression and association, so that we can have the free flowing of news. And then we see how we can come in as civil societies, as partners, as donors, to move our continent forward, or even our region forward.
Yeah. And Prof, talking about that, of course there are some safeguards around our constitutional order. I mean, there are some things you cannot touch unless you get the approval or the nod from the people, including term limits and
the reforms.
The devolved system of governance. Ideally, given this stature and the material, the cut from which our political elite is made, quite literally they are appreciative of what's happening in the neighboring countries. Since they can't do it here, for instance, farming up on what the people can see, hear, and read, if their peers do in the region, they seem contented politically.
Well, in Kenya, it was not just the constitution. I would say it is a drama, and the whole process that we have gone through. I don't think there is any Kenyan who was with us in civil society and in the intelligentsia who has not had, a night without food or without something, because your things are in a very bad way. Yeah. I was telling my sister here, my own experience as a professor, as a lecturer, junior lecturer actually, at Moi University in the 1990s, when the CID of the time came, and they picked me from, they allowed me to finish the class. They even allowed me to go to the office so that it is not a noisy business. And then they told me in very whispers, for us. And then they just opened their coats like this, and I could see the heavy guns in their heavy coats. And I was scared shit.
And you only failed to report a day.
Yeah, so now I get in the car and go to the station, and after interrogation, long interrogation, they told me that we've not caught you, but we want to know what you're up to. So essentially, it meant from 1994, 1995, and 1996, every Monday morning, you are reporting to tell them what you're teaching. So you teach them before you go to teach your class. Obviously, and they say that what you have told us, we believe is what you are going to do in the class. What are they doing? Because at that time, you could not teach political science. You could only teach government and public administration. The government had banned the title of political science and so on. Now, and there are many, get Wafula Buke, get other Kenyans who will tell you how their own lives were actually damaged by the government of the day. There are some people who walked out of that regime, and we are now seated here. There are many who did not walk out of that regime. In thousands, perhaps in hundreds of thousands, who did not make it to the new canon. Because their lives were completely damaged. They didn't manage to go to school and so on and so forth. Now, but the cumulative result was that Kenyans are battle-hardened.
Yeah.
And let me say that for the purpose of listening. We are battle-hardened, and that there is nothing that can deter us from defending our democracy. It doesn't matter whether you think we are going to lose jobs, we are going to do this. For us, that doesn't matter. Because we've seen how important it is to stand for freedom.
Yeah.
And when this lady go to Tanzania and sit in that classroom, in that primary school, to observe an election, what is the ideological drive? She comes from a country that values freedom.
Yeah.
And that's us. And our development, which we have today, is based on that. That's how people can choose in part of Kenya, like in Mount Kenya region, that we're going to vote, hugely for William Ruto.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who is going to represent our interest. And we vote for him. Every village, old people who are there during Moi.
And your own mother defied you.
My mother defies me because I was for Jaramogi's son. You know, she tells me I'm not going to vote with you because you are going to distract me from what I need. People are resolved. Why? Because we have gone beyond ethnicity, we have gone beyond our regionalism, we have gone beyond our faiths, and what we believe in is freedom is what we need to protect. And I think that's where the Constitution is safe. Constitutions are always work in progress. She's an expert in that. Constitutions are always work in progress. They will be changed across generations. But the values that underpin our Constitution is going to be there. And let me tell you, not just about us. If we are East Africans, we are going to sit here knowing, I have friends like Kabudi and others who, if Professor wants to visit me, we will visit Tanzania. Yeah, and we'll go and have seminars and conferences there and talk about freedom, because their founding father, Julius Nyerere, postponed the independence of his country, the freedom of his country, so that Kenya can be free. For a whole year, Tanzania was in a limbo. It is not free and it's not unfree, because the British has allowed that Tanzania can be now independent. But he refused, so that he can synchronize the independence of our republic with his own independence. So the lady, President Suruhu, must know we are coming from some history. Okay. We are not victimizing her. We are not singling her out. We are telling her that there is something we have been doing. And what we have been doing is to fight for freedom in the region. Museveni himself was brought up by Nyerere. He used to go to Nyerere's debates. Nyerere used to have debates in the University of Dar es Salaam and other quarters where he invites scholars from the Black Panther in the United States to liberation movements. And they would come to talk every afternoon and for long hours about freedom, economic freedom, social freedom, political freedom. And Museveni is a product of that school. So there are backsliders and there are those who have progressed.
Okay.
Including
when apartheid South Africa was under firm grip of the apartheid.
Even the ANC was part of this debate.
Frelimo.
Yes, when I went I stayed in South Africa for 10 years. Yeah. And when I'm with them, I'm in the ANC, I was like an ANC member. I voted Thabo Mbeki in 2004. I voted in South Africa. Why? Because they don't consider you as an outsider, particularly the ANC team. They consider you one of them. I advised them and worked with them long before I came to Kenya. Why? They had shared our general aspiration for a culture of freedom. And they had come to breathe in that. And that's why South Africa has taken a very firm lead in terms of getting democracy on an even keel.
Yeah.
So we celebrate President Cyril Ramaphosa. I worked under him at the International Crisis Group, who was the chief there. And these are people who believe in democracy. Are you surprised that SADC has issued the statement it has issued? Yeah. It is because SADC is under leadership that believes in democracy.
Okay. Yeah. And Tanzania is more,
Tanzania
is leaning SADC than Jumuiya.
Yes.
And Dr. Yes, please.
I was just thinking about solutions now. Yeah. Because, you know, and I'm very happy that Professor is telling Mama Suluhu and Museveni that Kenyans are coming.
Yeah.
We are coming. And let me tell you, we have reached an age where you cannot commit atrocities and crimes against humanity and get away with it. Even here in Africa, ourselves, we are going to find justice for these people. And what we are doing and what is happening in their countries, they think they can threaten their people and kill them. They cannot kill millions of them. You cannot kill everybody. But there are groups of people collecting evidence. And let me tell them, it's a warning from mama to mama. People are collecting sufficient intelligence, sufficient evidence in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Kenya. For all these abductions, for all this, we are documenting, recording this. It's not for fun or for historical facts that we are documenting this. Because crimes against humanity and such atrocities do not have a limitation of time. We will find these people and we'll find justice for our people. We may not do it today because of the difficulties and the hurdles you find. But the information, the evidence we have, we will use it. And these people, by God, they will pay for their crimes. And even if they don't pay for their crimes, their children will pay for their crimes. Because either here on earth or even on the year after, they will pay for their crimes. But what I can say, we have international frameworks, we have even our judiciary, it has jurisdiction to deal with these crimes. There are some crimes, transnational crimes, that you can take in any judiciary. And since we have a very good judiciary of our own, we can actually work on it. So we are working on collecting all this evidence, Mama Suluhu and our neighbor Museveni, and even our government here, be knowing that whatever you are doing, we are watching. And thank God today we have social media. We have all these gadgets that you can walk like here and you think that we are not recording what is being said, we are not, you know, getting the information that we need. Once the time is coming, and because the constitution of Tanzania has not yet changed, you have 2 terms. And the constitution of Kenya is not likely to change because we will fight it for these 2 terms. Power is transient.
It is.
It means that it will end. The way it is started, you will not be in power forever. Here in Kenya, in Tanzania, and even in Uganda. It is not going to last forever. And when that is done, a time will come when those people will stand on the other side of the dock and they will answer for their crimes. That's what I would, that's message number 1 I would like to pass. The message number 2 is that it is true, Professor, we are hardened warriors. There's nothing really in Kenya that shocks us. And let me tell you, you can kill all of us, but the ones that will survive will not just mourn us, they will make sure that our death was not in vain. And in here, there are certain things you will try to do. And I can tell you in 2027, things are going to be different. Kenyans will not sit by. And I'm sure your mother now knows better. And they will not sit down and say that you did this to us and then go back and say, utatupatia unga alafu tukupigie kura. Things are going to be different in Kenya. And that's why I'm saying the consequences of what has happened in Tanzania is that they have hardened us. And they have also made us more vigilant. We realize that because we have won this human rights, rule of law, and democracy, now it is time to safeguard those, to make sure that we will never again have what is happening in Tanzania. Because we went through that, and we have surmounted that, so we don't want to go back. I can assure you, many Kenyans who are now, including Gen Zs, who have now gotten their voters' cards and ID cards, they will make a difference in this country. And my message is, please, if you are of age, get your voter's card and register, get your ID card and register as a voter, because that's the only weapon, a peaceful weapon, to make sure that we transition people who are ready to be transitioned.
Thank you.
The numbers are worrying, though.
So we'll talk about the numbers, Elizabeth. Let's now bring in Ruben Kigame, who joins us from Eldoret City in Uasin Gishu County. Good morning, Dr. Ruben. And your statement concerned about the outcome of the elections in Tanzania, should this be a cause of concern regionally, given that Uganda is heading to the polls next year and Kenya thereafter in 2027?
We have a very major problem in the East African community. And like one of the panelists said earlier, we have a very terrible example for the new members. What is worrying is that President Ruto, as well as President Museveni, congratulated Samia Suluhu. Now, that congratulation itself is a very bad precedent, because we know, and international media has proven, and observers have proven, that the election was actually not fair. So to congratulate her is to also imply they support unfair processes. That is not the way to go. But the second thing is the title that Mama Samia Suluhu herself has abrogated to herself. That is Simba Jike. That goes exactly against the founding father Nyerere, who told CCM leaders that whenever they come to an election, they have to ensure that the candidates that run are people-centered, that it's the wish of the people that is respected. Now, if that is not the case, then of course, they are not only going against CCM founding father wishes, but they betray Nyerere, because Nyerere was one of the founders of the Organization of African Unity, or AU, alongside Nkrumah. And you know that Nyerere was against dictatorship. In fact, that's why he went into Uganda to remove Idi Amin in 1978-79. And Kaguta Museveni was observing all this. So to see Museveni, Ruto, and the cronies that they work with support a dictatorship, a dictatorial takeover of the will of the people, is a very bad example. And so I'm saying it's time for the citizens of East Africa, more than 400 million, I do believe, the East African community. It is time for the people to actually rise against all these dictators and show them the door, because that's not what we want. I mean, the East African Charter says we can move anywhere, we can interact anywhere. The African Charter also says that. So the Gen Z are not the only ones dissatisfied. A lot of us millennials are actually out to say, away with dictators, and it's a betrayal what is going on in East Africa.
And Dr. Kigame, having mentioned Kaguta Museveni, who thereafter came to power, and never fulfilled his major pledge before the President of Parliament in Kampala, saying he will observe the Constitution and he will not overstay in power. It's more than 35 years later, and what's happening in Tanzania and also in Rwanda. Ideally, given all these examples, should Kenya, being the only free society and liberal, at best constitutional in terms of its democracy, be worried as we head to the ballot in 2027?
First of all, I need to correct you. Kenya is not a free society. Kenya has reverted back to the dictatorship that we used to see in the 1980s, when media was not free, when those who corrected the government were jailed and tortured. We have seen from the Gen Z uprising and so on that people were picked from their houses and killed and or abducted, including one of those that is being held in Uganda now. He's one of my friends. I was an independent presidential candidate in 2022. Bob Njagi was also an independent presidential candidate, and we were working together. So recently Bob was abducted by the Ruto administration because of wanting accountability and so on. And together with Nicholas Oyo, who I was also working with very closely, they are being held in Communicado in Uganda, having been taken away on 1st October. Now, look at the Kenyan Foreign Office, Musalia and his team. They have said absolutely nothing. Yeah. And you remember when Martha Karua and former CJ Mutunga were mercilessly pushed away at the airport and sent back to Kenya by Samia Suluhu. Kenya's Foreign Office never said anything. And you can see the trend. You can see the conversations that are going on. I guess that's why Ruto and Museveni are congratulating, Suluhu. But it's not just the two. The African Union itself, which seems to be a stooge of the West, is a betrayal of the OAU. They're actually congratulating Samia Suluhu, even when SADC and so on are saying the election was not fair. The election did not even take place. Their gadgets were confiscated and so on. So we are worried about the Uganda people coming to an election in 2026. We are certainly worried about the trend in Kenya, because with Ruto introducing all these bills to stifle free speech and so on, taking us back to the Moi days, I must say that we do not have too much hope unless the people rise up and say enough is enough. So I agree, civil society and the Gen Z should regroup and just tell these people, we don't want you. This is not the kind of East Africa we want.
Okay. And Dr. Ruben, pointing out the aspect of constitutional democracy, you talked about the president, and he certainly has no prosecutorial powers as Samia Suluhu Hassan does, for instance, the symbolism in terms of the power projection of the presidency, or what Kaguta Museveni can do in Uganda. He is limited to an extent. As a presidential aspirant who seeks the mandate from the people in 2027, what's the hope that you can sell the Kenyan people, leveraging on the institutions that were created by our constitution to bring the much-needed prosperity in our country?
That's a good question. The first thing we must really observe as people wanting a new Kenya, people who want a new East Africa, is that constitutionalism must be observed. Lazima tutekeleze katiba. This thing called katiba is not an ornamental document. When we hold a constitution up and say nitakuwa muaminifu kwa katiba, it's not a joke, because the constitution is a lifeline of democracy. The constitution of Kenya, of Uganda, of Tanzania is really the one that guarantees the rule of law, order in society, justice, and so on. So if I am given a chance to show direction to Kenya as a president in 2027. Of course, personally, having worked with Linda Katiba, with Akina Martha Karua, and so on, I would actually be betraying the people if then I began to denigrate the Constitution. So the Constitution is the one that guarantees us the legitimacy to actually be in office. And so that is going to be, in fact, it's my second agenda. My first agenda is bomoa ufisadi, dismantle corruption. My second one is tekeleza katiba, implement the Constitution in full, because we're all bound by it. And then, of course, the third one is Jenga Mkenya. So when I look at East Africa and I look at all the elections, the institutions that are meddled with, like the IEBC in Kenya and so on, that's a worrying trend. And time has come for us to be truthful to ourselves, for us to be so resolute and say, we do not want dictators. That's not what we want in East Africa. We also do not want people that, begin to demonize us against each other. For Suluhu to say that it's Kenyans, it's foreigners, wageni, ndio wanafanya haya. Watanzania wenyewe wanasema hawamtaki, they don't want her. So, and by the way, Kenyans tried to even go in, the Gen Zs tried to go in at the border. They were turned away. So, which Kenyans are in there? Which Ugandans are there? So, I want to say it is so important for us to protect our democratic freedoms because they were received, they were gotten through bloodshed, through suffering. People like those who fought for multi-party democracy were jailed, they were beaten. Akina Njoya were beaten on the streets. Women had to even strip at Uhuru Park, fighting for this thing. And then you just come in one swoop and you begin to denigrate it. No, we will not allow it.
Okay, Dr. Kigame, stay with us. I'll be coming to you here before we finish up the show here. And many thanks for joining us. Stay with us. Prof, he points out a very pertinent point, which is the silence from foreign affairs when Kenyan citizens are held incommunicado in neighboring countries, and to an extent allowing other citizens from Jumuiya to be abducted from Kenya. Kiza Besigye, a clear example last year in 2024, the deportation of the Turkish nationals to the dens of the authorities in Ankara. It seems all this is a choreography and political players who are partnered in crime as well.
The sole responsibility of a state, whichever document you look at, whichever philosophy you visit, is to protect the citizen.
Yeah.
That's the sole responsibility of any government in the society. Now, and you protect your citizens from internal threats and external threats. Now here, we are having a situation where Kenyans are threatened. Like, for example, if president of another country declares war on your citizens, start abducting them, going to hotels, removing them, and some may be actually working for the government because they may be having their responsibilities or duties there. Others are innocent business people who pay taxes to this country and are going to make ends meet in Tanzania, and they are suspected just because they are Kenyans. This is what we call pogroms, basically projects of persecution. Now, the first voice we should be hearing is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because it's our voice in relation to foreign countries. That deafening silence we have had amid all these atrocities is what is worrying. And if we have not said this before, let us put it in record. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has failed Kenyans. It has failed Kenya. And that will go into record that in 2024-2025, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kenya failed Kenyans. And I think this should be an issue that Parliament, a sober Parliament, should be debating. Yeah. Because this country has no any role. Don't tell us about development. Don't tell us about these things we're putting in big papers and big letters. The sole responsibility of a nation is to protect its citizens. Look at the Americans when one of their own is at risk, if you care. And you see how far they move to ensure, even somebody abducted by criminals in a foreign country, they ensure that they protect them, because they know by law, not by desire, by law, you have to protect your citizens. So our government current today is failing openly.
Primary duty.
Its primary duty is to protect citizens, not to feed us, not to ensure that our banks are transacting. Those are transactional issues. The sole responsibility for the survival of a state is to protect its citizens from internal criminals and external aggression. Now, if you reduce that purpose, then is the Kenyan state doing what it's supposed to do? No, it is not. Maybe we can mention the shared responsibility to protect lives in our region. Tanzania holds the medal because Nyerere took the decision that has never ever been taken by any other country to protect the Ugandans from Idi Amin. We had everybody, the British, who have been the colonial power of the three, the European community, the United Nations, had ruled that Amin is a person who is a threat to the lives of the East Africans, not just Ugandans. And therefore, the Tanzanian military rolled into Uganda and into Kampala and installed a government that we hoped would protect human rights. And that is how the Ugandans are today. The Ugandans owe their freedoms. Museveni owes his own power to what Nyerere did. So let Mama Suluhu and others not think that we have no history. We have a history of protecting freedoms in this country. And I would point to Mama Suluhu and others. When an old man in his 70s get a young boy and name him Freedom, what does that tell you about this region? When we name our whole streets Freedom, which is Uhuru, Uhuru is freedom in Kiswahili. Suluhu is solution. Uhuru is freedom. We name, just go to the books, all the books Nyerere has written. The first one, freedom and development, freedom and. So the key here is freedom. And if Mama Suluhu can protect the freedom of Tanzanians, she'll be safe. If she can protect the freedom of Kenyans there, she'll be safe. So this is the point. It's not a national issue. It's not a regional issue. It's a humanity issue.
Thank you. Ambassador Koki, having been, of course, in Dar es Salaam and looking at what's happening, of course, this is a subject matter that also extends to the African continent. In Cote d'Ivoire, more than 55 presidential aspirants were locked out of the contest, which is an interesting discussion that we can have some other day. But should we be worried as a nation?
Yes, and in fact, that fear of the infringement of our rights and the undermining of the rule of law should always be a constant worry and a constant reason to fear. Because when we are fearful, then we remain vigilant. And even though we know we have safeguards, because unlike our neighbors, we have the Constitution. And we also have institutions that are anchored in the Constitution. They may be swayed here and there occasionally, but at the end, there will be the potential for them to stand up. And I was listening to Kagame. Yes.
Kagame. It's a big.
Kagame is our presidential.
Big Kagame.
He was talking about legitimacy. And I was thinking, all the reasons why you go to observe elections in countries and the reasons why you have regular elections, it is to seek a fresh mandate to get legitimacy so that you are promising that if you elect me, I will protect your constitution. I will be accountable to you. And I'm just looking at the last few elections we have had in Kenya, in our neighborhood, and in many African countries. I mean, you have a president who is old. I'm not saying old people are not presidential material, but somebody who clearly is not adding value to their countries, getting elected over and over with 90%, 80-something percent, and they are not even aware where they are. And I'm thinking, when those people say they have been elected by 98%, they are saying that they have now legitimacy to govern.
To govern, yeah.
Look at our neighbor here. Can you say that from what you hear the citizens of Kenya saying about their government, about their parliament, can you say that from the Gen Z's revolt, can you say that those institutions have legitimacy? That is an issue that we have to grapple with. Now that legitimacy does not mean much to those who govern us, what can we do about it? The second thing is a novelty that was introduced by our 2010 Constitution, public participation. Public participation in our Constitution was meant to enhance and strengthen accountability. And it is based on the principle that the voice of the people is the voice of God. And we have heard that Parliament, everybody does not respect public participation, the finance bill and all others. Every time we say this, the government does the opposite. And let me tell you, when the government fails to listen to its own people through public participation, it is refusing to listen to the voice of God.
Thank you.
And when you refuse to listen to the voice of God, which is the people's voice, then that is the beginning of the end.
Okay, appreciate it. Yes, Elizabeth, your brief final comments.
Two things. Number one is to urge our young people to come out and get their voters card. The numbers are extremely worrying. There's been the issue of people saying the slow processing of identification cards and whatnot. But I think if we put it as a collective effort, we need to have numbers out. Currently, we only have 90,000 people who are registered as voters out of the 6.8 million people. So that's a very big shortfall. Remember, this 6.8 people is enough to push a presidential candidate that you want. Number two, as a region, we are on our own as a people. I remember when I struggled to get out of Tanzania, I had to go through so many roadblocks, both by protesters and by the army. The army will tell me when I was leaving that usiseme yoyote ukitoka hapa. But the protesters, whenever we met them, I would introduce myself and say, I'm a Kenyan and I'm going back home. They will tell me, ukifika ambia wa Kenya kinachoendelea Tanzania. That is to say, they have they believe in the people of Kenya that we can help fight their war. So we are on our own. We need to pull together so that these dictators fall, because they have to.
Thank you.
That's the only way out.
Daktari Kigame, your final words here, as well as, of course, the future of Jumuiya, given what happened in Tanzania.
Our leaders do not understand that the fundamental resource of any nation is the people. It's not, the infrastructure, the roads, the railways, the vehicles, no. The people. So if you're not serving the people, you are illegitimate. The second thing I would say is that our systems in and of themselves do not reflect that legitimacy and accountability, that credibility we are looking for. And I am of a different opinion. I don't think we have only 90,000 registered under the IEBC. We have a problem with IEBC, and we need to look at it very closely alongside other institutions. They are not robust in registering people for the next election. We should see the evidence of their presence out there. It is not for us. That is their job. They're paid. Money is allocated for them to register. They should be in the forefront of ensuring ID cards are issued. Then we need to get rid of these ghost polling stations that are being reported. So the institutions must be seen to be credible. On the Jumuiya, I would say, young people, rise up. The Kenyans, Ugandans, Rwandans, Burundians, Sudanese, South Sudanese, nyinyi wote, amkeni, DRC, tuamke tuungane. If need be, when we want to remove someone from office, let us go into that country and get them out. Just the same way Nyerere did to fish out and smoke out Idi Amin. Time has come for us to unite. And let's begin at home. Kenyans, we shall reject, and we need to reject, the kind of treatment we are getting from government. We don't deserve the kind of treatment. And this is interesting. Today is when they are listening to my case that I filed, the petition against the Computer Abuse and Cyber Crimes Act. I'm shocked that we are going back to this in 2025, something that happened in the 80s and 90s. I want all of us to rise up and reclaim our freedoms. And I want our people to be respected, not just in Kenya. We want to be respected even in neighboring countries, just like we respect those who come here.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Dr. Kigame. Many thanks for your input here on the broadcast. The feedback here, the hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikari. The first is from Frank Orinde, says across East Africa, the echoes of dictatorship are growing louder. From Uganda to Tanzania, freedom is fading, and even Kenyans feel the sting of repression across the borders. Gen Z must rise, reclaim the civic space and demand justice that serves the people, not power. Gabi says, what we just saw in TZ isn't democracy, it's a disease. If this is, in quote, African democracy, then we need to kill it before it kills us. This system is a factory that produces the same corrupt and incompetent dictators. Sir Nixon Digure says, it is said that the perfect dictatorship would have been the appearance of a democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. May our good Lord heal Tanzania. Babu Michael says, what's happening in TZ is unfortunate and unacceptable by all means. After restoring internet access, threatening messages were sent to the citizens, warning them not to share videos or pictures of the dead and the injured. An attempt to cover up everything truly sad. Bobo Tiono says the happenings in Tanzania is a threat to stability in this African community region, and if not tamed, we might witness it in Uganda and Kenya because the system of governance is more like the same. Gabi again says the last one, Tanzania bleeds today because of a system that silences its people. When leaders fear competition, they turn elections into coronation exercises. But the truth is simple. You can't cage the will of the people forever. Tanzania deserves democracy that listens, not dictatorships. Prof, many thanks for your time. Appreciated. The CEO of the Africa Policy Institute, Asante Sana. Thank you. Ambassador Dr. Koki Mole Grignon is elections, governance and democracy commentator. Studied in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Elizabeth Adunda Yogo was in Dar es Salaam as well, in Tanzania as well, observing the elections. And Dr. Kigame joined us from Eldoret City in Uasin Gishu County. And Justin, a proud moment to be an African. Not sure why the American media has technically locked it out. New York has a new mayor. Zoran Mamdani, a 34-year-old state lawyer from the Queens, will be the 111th mayor of New York City. He will be the first Muslim to ever lead the city, as well as the first South Asian mayor and the youngest mayor in more than a century. But they have technically, otherwise, he was born in Uganda, Kampala.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's the wife of Mohammed Mamdani. Yes, who is one of the eminent professors we have in the region. The author of Subject to Citizens.
Yeah, actually he titled his name on his Twitter handle, Zoran Kwame Mamdani.
Yes.
A proud African moment as well.
Yeah.
To be proud of him.
Wow. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Next up is Health and Lifestyle with Safina Chengo. And I'll see you tonight on the bench on JKL. Till then, good morning.